Travis Wayne Goodsell. So, Jasmine has been resurrected from the dead. She's alive! And I'm going to go out of my way to say Jasmine has ascended. Whatever it is. Nelson will never, ever say that Jesus ascended. You can even look at the website. On the front website, they have Jesus is risen, his life, ministry, and resurrection. Resurrection is not ascension. Jesus has not ascended. That is the Mormon theology, whether Mormons believe it or not. So, Jasmine made an appearance also on YouTube, as she had sent me emails 2 days ago. I think it was, or was it yesterday? Telling me that they're alive. Because of the car accident that they had a while back, there's surgery that needed to be performed, and then there's diseases that have been found. And so, yeah, life's been tough. But rest assured, I know you guys, not me. I was never good. I'm not projecting at all, am I? The missionaries did not murder James and Jasmine because they did not join the church. Just want to get that clear out of the way. James and Jasmine had me worried because I've not been able to do Jasmine comment reply videos for the newly created Jasmine playlist that I have for my channel. And Jasmine's in for a rude awakening as YouTube's new policies indicate that she has to say yes. She uses AI because that's the name of her channel. So, welcome back, Jasmine. YouTube hates us. Dear God, such incompetence. I mean, seriously, new technology, and they don't know how to use it. They just create it, and it causes problems, and chaos ensues, and people's lives get ruined. So, anyway, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints should be banned from all channels on YouTube now. They violate the new policy. That's how scandalous this is. And I don't see anybody complaining yet. So anyway, back to the front. On my Mormon God terminating LDS Church for final April 2024 General Conference, Jasmine is saying, "Good morning, Travis. Oh, yay, the AI voice is back." You need to give me that AI voice, Jasmine. So somehow I can figure out how to put it on my computer that when it turns on, I can hear the voice. "Good morning, Travis." I'd seen it in the movies, so it must be capable. So yeah, she's just back for a little while getting stuff before going back to the hospital. First of all, we have missed you, not Jasmine. I will try to catch up on your videos. I hate getting behind. Your dancer video was great. Jasmine. Oh, you showed it. Oh. Great. To one of the nurses who was actually thinking about following you and wanted to learn. Great. Just great. She was just placating you, Jasmine. She's scared and has no intention of learning. It's their job to placate you at the hospital. Every guy learns this the hard way going into any business where there's a female that they try to hit on. She just smiles and is friendly because that's her job. It doesn't mean she's interested. Great. While I was at the hospital, she finished reading the Book of Abraham. And so she has a list of questions, and she's only going to ask one. Since this is off topic of this video, not really, no, Jasmine, no, it's purposely on topic. So yes, you've done it again, you're brilliant, you're intelligent, you've got big brains. Yes. No, the Book of Abraham is right on topic with the subject of the video of the latter days. And so, yes, Joseph Smith used the Book of Abraham purposely to warn Mormons of the latter days, giving us the day and times. He selected only 3 facsimiles to be published and put them in the specific order he put them in. So, no, this was on purpose by Joseph. He knew what he was doing. He is a translator. Nobody else seems to understand this. And so she gives me 1. The Breathing Permit of Horror, which is said to be the foundation for the funeral text papyri that was sold to Joseph Smith. Yeah, and the Book of the Dead also was the other one. The Book of Abraham, the Book of Joseph, as Joseph Smith called them, were the Book of the Dead and the Breathing Permit of Horror. I know you know about this, so could you please give some insight? Book of Abraham seems to have some racist overtones only when you put it into the hands of swine white supremacists. They turn everything white. Abraham was black. Jesus was black. But put into the hands of white supremacist Constantine Christianity, and all of a sudden they're all white. And so thus, what becomes literal history now is considered racist documents. And that's what nobody is understanding, as they all want to support their Christian religion and Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as being true, and in order to do so, they have to apologize for the racism in the Book of Mormon and in the Joseph Smith, or the Pearl of Great Price, which Book of Moses also has some racist stuff when you interpret it in the eyes of Christian interpretation, which is what this church does on purpose. The church is still racist despite 1978. And it's because of their Christian Jesus interpretation of things. One article stated that back then, are you listening to apologists, Jasmine? Everything they say is a lie. Everything the church says is a lie. Just come to me first. I'll tell you which links to go to help build on your understanding of things. And if it doesn't exist, I'll teach it to you. No, racism was exactly what it is today. It's always been the same. This is a white supremacist giving you this information, Jasmine. They're lying to you. Degrading blacks back then is the same as degrading blacks now. Hasn't changed. But there is a difference between old school racism of the current prophets and the neo-racism of the younger generations. Here in Utah, we've been having a lot of problem in the news of the white supremacist Mormon teens going on murder sprees. It's very sad that these Mormon boys are somehow thinking they're still going to be able to go on a mission, and they might. That's a sad reality of Utah. Innocent people getting murdered by Mormon boys who still end up going on missions. So, yeah, how have I been? I would get in more detail, but apparently you're sharing my content with strange nurses. If this nurse has an OnlyFans account, then fine. I'm not going to pay for it, but fine. At least I know where she stands. Okay. Oh, great. Adib Ghanim has read my paper, The Paleo-Hebrew Alphabet. So it'll be my top view for the week. Anybody going to the Academia page for the updated version of the signs in the heavens that show that the Mormon Church is false? It's out of my hands. That's the science of astronomy. Alright. Out of the internet. Store the hate comments in a file. And now we can pull up the Book of Abraham. Should we? Yeah, let's do that first. Facsimile number 1. This is part of the I think this was part of the Book of the Dead. And the Book of Joseph was the breathing permit of Hor, if I recall correctly. This technically has Osiris alive on a lion couch as the tail is up, indicating that Osiris is alive and he's in the position of prayer, which is in the Gardener's sign list. I guess I gotta bring up the internet again anyway. Oh my God. It would be A30 in the sign list. You just gotta flip him on his back. It's exactly the same. Technically, it's supposed to be translated differently than the form in A30 because he's flipped on his back. Every movement in Egyptian has a new meaning. And so thus, under A30, for a man praying, they should also have somebody on their back as A30.1 or something like that. However, Gardner failed to do his sign list completely. Yeah, so there's a lot of signs and thus translations that are missing from Gardner's. So any Egyptologist who's got a PhD and is a professional in the field who says we've got it all, we know it all, they're lying to you. They don't. I do. because see, they did it for A53, a dead person, a mummified body, and you can see that he's a man with a little goatee thing there. And then you see A54, which, dear God, why did you do it that way? Is now on his back, but he's facing the wrong direction. Oh my God. You Brits. Dumbasses all. And then A55 has him on a table. It still has a coffin, and the coffin is a little more expanded upon, I notice. But yeah, it's those variations should have been under the main category of A53. So the whole thing needs to be redone, and that's one of the big projects that is on a big long waiting list of projects to do. But nonetheless, notwithstanding, there it is, A30, there in facsimile number 1. This is a legitimate Egyptian document. And so, rats had chewed away at the papyrus when Joseph Smith got a hold of it. And so the right arm is missing, and well, it showed the partial, which is actually a wing. And apologists did get that right, in that they knew that the original document contained a hawk, falcon for Horus right there in the middle. And we know that Joseph Smith knew that there was supposed to be such a bird there, because he says so in the text of Abraham chapter 1. Yeah, everybody misses this. You know, we had an apologist who figured out that there was supposed to be a bird there, but didn't catch on to confirm his... So many ignorant people who are getting attention. But most Egyptologists complain that Anubis, who's the black guy with the white head, whose white face, is not supposed to have a knife in his hand. Oh dear God, did you not go to school to learn Egyptian to get your PhD? Do they just hand out Egyptian PhDs and you don't bother to go and learn? Is it just a participation award? Dear God. Even Eva Vasilevska knew and taught, yes, they had knives. You cut into the chest. Because it's bone. And yes, you also get something stuck up your... and then swivel around and all comes out. But they also utilize a certain potion to put into the deceased that liquefies all the stuff to come out. And then, yeah, you cut open the chest to remove the organs afterward. And so, yeah, there's a whole mummification process that's involved. And so the four sons of Horus, the canopic jars, are used to store the 4 separate organs. And there are some people that are trying to claim that 2 of them are wrong. And oh God, they're the 4 sons of Horus, and it's just, oh my God, you can tell by the animal and the one human shape. Come on, guys. And so, yeah, the Bawbird is number 1. He escorts the deceased into the afterlife. And then the alligator is exactly as Joseph Smith says it is in the explanation. It's the God representation for Pharaoh. Because apologists for the church are trying to find the god Elkanah, the god Libnah, the god Makra, the god Korash, the god Pharaoh. Oh my God. Do you not see the word of? It's the god of Elkanah. Who is Elkanah? It's in the text. He's the priest. And so Libnah, Makra, Korash are also different characters that are not listed in the document. And so Pharaoh, oh no, who's Pharaoh? I don't know who Pharaoh is. The god Pharaoh. What? Yeah, so Sobek is the symbol representation of Pharaoh, the god of Pharaoh. He has lots of gods, depending on the translation of the document. Thus, facsimile number 1. And so, understand, Jasmine, I'm not being sarcastic to you. I really hope you understand I'm being sarcastic to Mormon apologists who have failed and have made the church worse in the eyes of the world, as Egyptologists also don't know what they're talking about. So no, you are still brilliant for making this connection, even though you think you just came up with it and you're wondering. No, your inspiration is awesome. So whatever comes out of your mouth and onto the type of your... Brilliant, Jasmine. No, I'm condemning Mormons. And so this scene is translated correctly by Joseph Smith. The priest of the temple in Egypt. Everybody misses this too. Figure 10. What does it say, Mormon apologists? Dumbasses all. Abraham in Egypt. Not Babylon, not Samaria, Egypt. And so, you should be able to confirm this as an Egyptologist. Oops. Ended up being me. Sobek and Horus, the hawk falcon. You need to understand that this was many millennia ago when they established the set pictures for Egyptian hieroglyphs. And they maintained that pattern throughout the millennia. And so even though this document was written in the Roman time period of 3000 or 300 to 300 CE BC, it's irrelevant. They were still maintaining the same pattern for the hieroglyphs. And so the story of Osiris goes way back. And so for Joseph Smith to say Abraham is being sacrificed alive by the priest of the temple, yeah, perfectly appropriate and good as a translation. Because there are numerous different ways to translate this. Joseph Smith is using the way that the Bible authors, the Jews, during the Roman period time, of which this was written, used the Egyptian documents to plagiarize the Bible stories and put them in a narrative in each of the different books. So this is all Joseph Smith is doing for you, is teaching you how the Bible was conformed, how it was written, composed. All right? So don't get hung up on a learning of the Greek language of the Egyptian Egyptologist. That's as far as their knowledge goes. Jean Champollion in, was it December 22nd? Or is it 20? It was 1822. Can't remember the month and day. Deciphered the Rosetta Stone. Learning of the Greeks, language of the Egyptians. The Rosetta Stone used two forms of Egyptian, hieroglyphs and was it hieratic or demotic? Whichever linear script. And then had Greek at the bottom. The Greek is telling the translation of the two Egyptian texts above. And Egyptian is not an alphabetical language. It is not phonetic. It's pictographic ideograms. And so you can't superimpose phonemes onto it. But this is exactly what the Greeks did, so that they could not only show the Egyptian pictures to other people, but use their Greek language to tell the Egyptian story. And it doesn't quite work out the same vocabulary-wise, because you create a whole new vocabulary. This is what the Rosetta Stone was doing. It was creating Egyptian to be translated as a Greek-Egyptian hybrid. So thus, 1 Nephi, chapter 1, verse 2, the Book of Mormon, in the language of the Jew, or learning of the Jews in the language of the Egyptians. Paleo-Hebrew, which comes from the same Phoenician source origin that Greek branched off from and added to theirs, but they're one and the same script. Thus, Joseph Smith is also indicating that Greek had lost their way in only assigning one definition per word. I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew in case those of you watching did not know. So yes, the person who read my Paleo-Hebrew thing, yep, from academia. I am big time, whether people recognize it or not. And the majority of people do recognize it. I am well read by many around the world over all these years. And so the Paleo-Hebrew decipherment was how I was able to figure out the learning of the Egyptians in the language of the Egyptians. They are one and the same. The Paleo-Hebrew script was purposely taken from the Egyptian to create a visual ideographic language to utilize regardless of what language culture you encounter in your merchandise selling merchant travels there in the Middle East, because there were the Hittites and the Greeks and the Assyrians all around that area that had different languages. And so the Phoenician became a universal alphabet so that people could read it and understand each other despite the difference in the language, and thus gave birth to what has now been corrupted into a phonetic alphabet. Thanks to the Greeks who first trashed the language. Because as a visionary language, if you've ever heard the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words, yeah, they're not really kidding, but in this particular instance, each hieroglyph is worth 1,000 words. translatable. And so when you combine hieroglyphs together into a combo glyph, as I call it, you've got volumes of books of translation. So what Joseph did was just identify one variation of translation options to teach Mormons. And so what he's trying to talk about is the latter days. He's prophesying just like the Jewish authors of the Bible did with the Egyptian documents. And so this is all about the latter days. It has nothing to do about the actual history of Egypt and an actual Abraham and an actual priest named Elkanah, which Mormon apologists screw up and turn into white supremacist literature, and thus the racist overtones as a result. And so technically, yes, the Christ of the latter days is a white guy, not a blue or a greenish blue for water or whatever coloring for Osiris's face. And yes, even for the black, which is not really a black guy, but it's an animal, Anubis. It's somewhat extinct. Because again, we're talking many millennia when this was established as the designation for the character. But so to put a white guy's face on him is perfectly acceptable. Now they knew that it's a black guy because facsimile number 3 has the servant of the prince who's going through for the marriage ceremony as a black guy. The black face, black head, which he's supposed to have, which is Anubis, which is this guy, number 3. And so Joseph Smith purposely put in a white guy here because he's not talking about history. He's prophesying to you of the future latter days. He's the false prophet of the great and abominable church in the last days. Abraham is the Mormon Christ of the latter days. And he got it right. They're white guys. But he has the body left as black because in Abraham chapter 1, he explains that the descendants of Ham who took over Egypt, again, prophecy, not literal history, but he's using history, and he's actually correct on this. They are descendants of Canaan. DNA scientists have confirmed that the Egyptian pharaoh mummies are from Canaan. And Zawi Hawass, the antiquities leader in Egypt, was furious and demanded that it be changed to deny science. Can't do that. You got to let the science lead to tell the truth. But regardless, yeah, this is what it's portraying. And so, yes, I'm going to put Russell Marion Nelson as Elkanor. And my Mormon Christ picture for Abraham. Because Joseph Smith got it right. It's so hilarious. And so the lion couch is your big indicator of what Joseph Smith is talking about as the revelation, the day and time for the latter days. This is a death scene, and thus solar eclipse, as Abraham is also actually representing Emmanuel in the latter days, the sun god at noonday, Amen of the Egyptians. And so the sacrifice of the sun god is a solar eclipse in the constellation of Leo the Lion, 21st of August 2017. After which Monson dies, because that was Monson's birthday, and then he dies, and then who takes over? Nelson. See how accurate Joseph Smith is? Brilliant. Just like Jasmine. And so, with Sobek, the alligator, and Horus the hawk, I was then able to identify the location of the actual temple of where this actual scene comes from. Kam Ambo, the Temple of Gold. It's further south in Egypt. And so, sure enough, Joseph Smith got it right. Abraham in Egypt. It is not Samaria, it is not Babylon. It's Mormon apologists who are stupid, who are trying to reconcile the Christian bias imposition on the Bible. You can't do that, guys. You got to let science lead. Science will tell you the truth. You've got to trust the science. And they won't do it because the church has to be true at all costs. Even to deny the truth, even to deny history, even to forge documents and change history and edit Joseph Smith, because Joseph Smith, our founding prophet, is wrong. Dear God, such abomination. Alrighty, so facsimile number 2 is an annular eclipse. It's the sun symbol. It's also the womb symbol, the placenta in the woman that holds the baby. The waters part, dry land of the baby comes popping out on dry land. Breathes air, is now a full citizen of the United States of America. It is no longer an embryo, it is no longer a fetus, it now has rights as a citizen because it's now born. Pissing me off that the Biden campaign is now doing voter ads where we've got abortion on the ticket for this election. You already have it in the 14th Amendment, Section 1. You, as the president, have to have the DOJ, Merrick Garland, lock up those judges as terrorist, seditious conspirators for overthrowing the government. Because Congress apparently isn't going to haul them in and say, hey, we're removing you because you've violated the Constitution. There are checks and balances for a reason. Nobody wants to do it. Everybody wants to trash America and destroy it. And so thus, the ring is an annular eclipse. And yes, there's a whole bunch of penises in here. They were not afraid or ashamed of their bodies. They very well knew that their bodies are the way they are. And so they taught their bodies to little kids. Sex ed. From infancy, learning the language. And so it all has meaning in the language as a visionary language. And so thus you have to portray it as such. And so you even have one that's leaking ejaculate. This is double X, I think. No, it's triple X. That's triple X. Because 1X is just nudity, which graphic shows the genitals. 2X is penetration being shown, but no fluids. And triple X is the fluid stuff that's shown. That's what I learned from my peers as a kid. Little kid, I'm being taught this. Because, you know, it was being phased out after the drugs that and the sects that invaded the disco era, and so disco music died with the death of the busts up of all of the clubs, disco clubs. Very sad. A lot of great music from the disco era. Xanadu is no more. Alright, and so, yeah, this is the Eye of Ra, the eye, which is Amun, which is Horus, etc., etc. It's the two eyes of Horus is Peter. Lots of translation involved here. Volumes upon volumes of volumes. But you'll notice that Egyptologists on Wikipedia only have the translation of the text. They will not do any of the other stuff. The male bull, though it could also be female, it's kind of hard to tell because it's somewhat of a stick figure and it's smaller. That seems more like an Apis bull rather than Hathor, because I only see one little line, not several. But regardless, that seems to have a combo because it's wearing a crown on its head, which crown is, I don't think is, well, I'd have to check to see if Hathor wears it, but there's multiple signs from Gardner's sign list imposed onto some of these characters, but the four sons of Horus, yeah, you won't see those in any sign list in that form. And again, the whole thing needs to be redesigned to have the main character and then subcategories of the variations of that character in a real sign list, which is a big project that I'm still trying to work on PNG things and getting things pulled out to create the sign list with. It's quite a project, but nonetheless. And so, yeah, you probably know the scandal. No, it's not. Joseph Smith knew exactly what he was doing. Figure number 3 came from the Book of Joseph Papyra and has the word for seer, and thus Joseph Smith got it right in the explanation. That's Horus. That's Emmanuel, the sun god at noonday. And I purposely put it into that position, even though other hypocephali, plural, have a scarab beetle that's in that place, but no, perfectly appropriate, because the scarab beetle also is portrayed by the Egyptians as pushing dung on the sand of Egypt, representing the heavens of the dung beetle pushing the sun across the sky. You'd think Egyptologists would know this stuff, and yet and so yes, being on a ship, that's the representation of the scarab beetle. That is the ship pushing the sun across the sky. And so here you have a ship instead, which is on the Nile as another translation. And it's just unbelievable that all these Egyptologists who have PhDs are just dumb. God. And so their John Gee's father, who I think was also John Gee, I don't know, it doesn't matter. I had obtained his submission to the church when they were trying to create a commentary manual for the Book of Abraham, and it was rejected because it was too complicated for the simple Mormons to figure out. And so now it's just a spiritual thing with no explanation of the Egyptian whatsoever. Yeah, my dad destroyed all my property, threw it all away, while throwing me under the bus, sending me down the river when the church attacked and had me disappeared for 6 years of my life. Very tragic. Because even though he had some accurate translations in the learning of the Greeks, language of the Egyptians, it technically was worthless. And so, yeah, rats had gotten a hold of this and took a big chunk out of the right quadrant, right hemisphere, upper hemisphere. And so thus the text around the side also comes from the Joseph, or Book of Joseph papyri, as well as the 4 sections below figure number 3. And so trust Joseph. He knows what he's doing. And after I had deciphered Egyptian in the language of the Egyptians, going back to the facsimiles, I then recognized what Joseph Smith was explaining. Let's see if I can find an example. As also, no, that's not it. But that's, yeah, here it is. In figure 4 is the first instance that pops into my view. Answers to the Hebrew word rakiang. That was Rabbi Sykes, who taught Joseph Smith Hebrew and had published the Hebrew alphabet and grammar. You can get that book online in the PDF form and see that sure enough, Rabbi Sykes did spell rakia as rakiang. That's why Joseph Smith is doing it that way. Signifying expanse or the firmament of heaven, also a numerical value. Joseph Smith is now pulling a Jewish Kabbalah on us. Just so that you know. Signifying 1,000. And so nobody seems to catch on to this. And so Kolob, yeah, it's very similar to Kokab, but Joseph Smith is using Jewish Kabbalah with the Hebrew characters. And so no, it is not Kokabim, stars, Kokab. It is Kolob. It has a different meaning. Alrighty, and so everybody gets all upset about Inish Goan Dosh, said to be by the Egyptians the sun, when it's Amun or Ra. He's not doing it that way. God. See here, he uses Hebrew. Ha-ko-ka-beam. The star. Doing something else. And everybody gets all in a tizzy. Cut it out. All right. Well, figures 12 to 21, he says, will be given in the own due time of the Lord. That is interesting. Yeah, it's been translated. But, so I guess it's due time of the Lord. Alright, so this was 14 October 2023, the annular solar eclipse in Virgo. So the combination of an annular solar eclipse with the placenta of a woman, Virgo, ta-da, Joseph Smith knew what he was doing. He selected these three out of all of them and put them in the order that he put them in on purpose. First the lion, 21st of August 2017. Second, the annular woman, 14th of October 2023. And here's 8 April 2024, the wedding supper feast of the Lamb at the Zion Temple. Oops, Mormons refused to believe and missed the Exodus. There is no Zion. You've now destroyed all of prophecy, Mormons. How does that make you feel? You're now going to be utterly destroyed. So yes, this is a wedding feast. A wedding ceremony, technically. And so, who does Joseph Smith put on the throne in place of Osiris? Abraham. And so, Pharaoh. Is there ever a time when Egyptians had a female pharaoh? Yes. Why didn't Egyptologists figure this out? Dear God. In particular, Christians, believing the Bible to be literal history, believe that Abraham is during the time period, and it varies depending on who wants to put Abraham in what time period of pharaohs to identify the particular pharaoh, because the author didn't want to name the pharaohs because he's not talking about history. But anyway, yeah, the 18th dynasty of Egypt, the David Moseses. And so Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh. And because her husband died, David Moses the second? Crap. I need reference books for my associative memory. I think it's third. I think so. I think David Moses II was her husband and he died. And so David Moses III was too young. Yeah, I think that's correct. And so you have a surrogate on the throne, whereas the actual female pharaoh is not on the throne. And so, thus, Joseph Smith uses the Abraham account to tell an additional story to explain this, to prophesy of the future. So your Christ, Mormons, is right there as the prince, who, yes, is actually incorrect. It is not Shulam, one of the king's principal waiters. Yeah, it is not for the prince of Pharaoh. Ola, okay. Yeah, the prince and Shulam need to be flipped. Shulam is number 4, the female, which is Ma'at. She is the wife. They're holding hands. That's unusual. Why is Ma'at holding his hand? She's the judgment. She's a Libra. She is Amenet, as he is Amun, Horus, the prince. He is getting married so that he can become the king. That's the wedding supper feast of the Lamb at the Zion Temple, so that he can become the King of Kings, Lord of Lords for the millennium. His father is dead. Ta-da! And so thus, an Osiris representation. Osiris is dead. He's in heaven. And according to the Egyptian story. And so Horus has to have a surrogate to anoint him King of Kings, Lord of Lords, to take over the throne after Lucifer is banished from the kingdom, losing to Horus. All of this needs to be understood in the context. And so, yes, Anubis is the Olimla, a slave belonging to the prince. And not technically a slave, but yeah, all the priests who work at the temple are your slaves when you get sealed or when you get go to do the temple worship. Even your deceased body, people pay them to do the work of preparing them and burying them for the afterlife. Well, and so yeah, they are slaves in that sense, but they get paid, so it's not like slaves of corrupted late millennia slavery has become because of the white supremacist Brits, British royalty. Alrighty. And then there's the Ankh that's in Isis, or actually Hathor. She's wearing the crown of Hathor. Thus, mother. And thus, the prince, her son. Whereas Osiris is wearing the coronation crown. The two crowns put together for a ceremonial crown. And that's listed here in S8 is the ceremonial crown that he's wearing there. Alrighty, so now we can go to the, why did I close out on that? The actual text, because Joseph Smith does a wonderful thing for us in explaining a big question that even the Jews can't answer after all this time. Mostly thanks to Constantine screwing up the translation of the Bible and then assembling the Bible into a historical narrative, which is not supposed to be. Each were separate books. And so when we get after the attack, and then, 3 virgins were sacrificed on the altar for their virginity. Abstinence only, women, good for you. Yeah, this is the latter days. Abstinence only. Women are getting sacrificed. And the gods of, and it's still, I can't, oh my God. How could a Mormon apologist be that dumb? Oh God. And so, Abraham hears the voice saying that he's Jehovah, even though Abraham is the representation of Jehovah. It's not Jesus. This is the new name of the Creator, Yah. Son Yah became Yahweh after completing the creation. Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. That's his new name. How everybody missed that, dear God. They all claim to be scholars and experts in Hebraeus, and yet they missed it. It's throughout the whole pattern of the Genesis author, and they missed it. Unbelievable. It's like Nelson getting up at the pulpit of conference and choosing, according to 2 Hebrew scholars at BYU, to screw up the translation of Israel. To use the white supremacist one, because white supremacists don't want to learn Hebrew. It's evil. It's not Christian English. So, yeah, big problems. And so he talks about Noah, also a creation story, and refers to the latter days, because Matthew says, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the latter days. Thus, the story of Noah is a prophecy and revelation for the latter days. It's not literal history. All right, here we go. 22, or 21. And they even got Pharaoh right. Because Pharaoh originally was called king, not Pharaoh, which is a Melchizedek, a king and a high priest theocracy. But they always were a Melchizedek, even though they were called king prior to 18th or 19th dynasty, when it began being called Pharaoh. And so now this king of Egypt was a descendant of the loins of Chem. This is Paleo-Hebrew. It is phonetically transliterated from the Egyptian word for Egypt, Kemet. The T is the feminine singular for Chem, which designates it as land of Egypt. The black land. Chem is black. Ham, Chem, black. Egypt. Why the Genesis author put in Mitzrayim is beyond me. Chem, Ham, is Egypt. And then his sons get portions of what is Egypt. Canaan, getting Canaan. Oh my God. They all claim to be scholars, and yet they're dumber than dumb. PhDs? Pfft. That's just a symbol of stupidity, apparently. And was a partaker of the blood of the Canaanites. Confirmed, Joseph Smith is correct. DNA has proven it. From this descent sprang all the Egyptians. Thus the blood of the Canaanites was preserved in the land. Again, correct. He's marrying his sister to maintain the bloodline. That's why they did it. And it goes back many millennia to the story of Nut and Geb having sex, and then Atum tells Shu, Nut and Geb's father, separate them. I don't like them hanging around all the time. Oops, too late, she's pregnant with 5 babies. And so now that Shu has separated them, she can't give birth. Oh no! Comes David to the rescue. Thought. And so he adds 5 days to the calendar to make it a civil calendar rather than a religious calendar. And on those 5 extra days of the year is born the 5 different babies. And Osiris is the firstborn. And Set is the secondborn, and he usurps the birthright and blessing and murders his son, Cain sacrificing Abel. From the Egyptian documents, guys. From the Egyptian documents. This is what Joseph Smith is talking about with the prophecy of Ezekiel 37. The stick of Judah and the stick of Joseph being combined into one, correcting and adding to the stick of Judah, which is the Bible that we have. And the stick of Joseph is the Latter-day Christ keys from Doctrine and Covenants, section 27, verse 5, which is Nephi, not Moroni, because Joseph Smith corrects that in his second vision, which Willard Richards said Joseph was wrong and made it Moroni because of Doctrine and Covenants 27:5. It's Nephi, because Nephi is king in the Book of Mormon. So, alrighty. And thus sprang the race which preserved the curse in the land. And yes, Kim is black, and if you understand it in a Christian interpretation, yeah, that's racist. But it's not literal history. This is a prophecy of the future. It's Nelson. It's Brigham Young who preserved the curse. What's the curse? The loss of the priesthood authority. Brigham Young is a white supremacist. And he's being compared to a black man. Joseph is insulting the future Brigham Young. He's doing this in 1838. He knows it's Brigham. He can't prove it yet to excommunicate him. And he does this, and then Brigham Young does his whole war and coups the church, and is called president among the Danites left in the High Council. In that minutes meeting that I did in the video. The greatest insult to a white supremacist is not to call them a racist, but to call them black. They hate it. They go in a rage. They murder. And so, yeah, it's hilarious when they do their DNA and find out that they had an ancestor who raped one of the black slaves. And then they're shamed, and they're not considered full white among their other white supremacist brethren who now are refusing to do their DNA because they don't want to find out that they too white supremacists are so fun to humiliate because they get so triggered. But yeah, this is the enemy. This is the great and abominable church. But even though they have the first Pharaoh being a righteous man, he's not with authority. And so even though he tries to imitate the order established by the fathers in the first generation, he fails. And so, 25, the first government of Egypt was established by Pharaoh, the eldest son of Egyptus. And who? Who? Who's her husband? Who's his father? The daughter of Chem. And it was after the manner of government of Ham, which was patriarchal. See, this has to do with the Noah story, where Noah lands on the mountain after the waters part, dry land appears, he plants fruit trees, produces wine, gets drunk, and Ham goes into the tent of his father when he's drunk and somehow sees that he's naked, tells his brethren, our father is naked. Shem, name, and Japheth, Yaphtah, go into the tent carrying a blanket, going backwards so that they don't see him naked, and cover up his nakedness. Noah, when he wakes up from his drunken stupor, curses Canaan, the son of Ham, not any other son. Canaan. Why? What's going on? What happened? Again, we're being told here by Joseph. It's the reason for the first Pharaoh of Egypt, which preserved the curse of the loss of priesthood authority. And imitating the original government. Church of Jesus Christ seems to imitate Joseph Smith's church, but it has no authority. And so, it's the wife who's also named Egyptus. Did we pass that? We did. Yeah, the land of Egypt first being discovered by a woman who was the daughter of Ham and the daughter of Egyptus. Ham and Egyptus, husband and wife, they have a daughter. And the first Pharaoh was the oldest son of Egyptus, who was the daughter of Ham. Egyptus. Now, yes, Hugh Nibley claims polygamy to preserve the curse of blacks. That's him being racist. He's turning this into literal history. And so, it's Canaan. The blood of Canaan. Canaan is the son of Ham, the blessing son of Ham. Chem, Egypt. And so he's the son, and so the Canaan and Egyptus are both descended from Ham and Egyptus. Am I making any sense? So you have Ham and his wife Egyptus. They have Canaan and Egyptus. Canaan and Egyptus have sex, produce Pharaoh, the first Pharaoh. Okay? This is Nut and Geb producing Osiris, the first Pharaoh. The first Pharaoh in Egyptian is Osiris, the first Pharaoh, king over all the land. And he's murdered by Cain, Satan, in Paleo-Hebrew, which is adversary, which is incomplete because there's more to the definition using Paleo-Hebrew, which is a visionary language. Nonetheless, see what happened? Joseph is retelling the Egyptian story of the people and turning it into a prophetic thing for the future as well, and explaining the 10th story of Noah. Canaan has sex with his sister, tricked Noah into marrying them. And so thus, Ham is not cursed. Whether he allowed the marriage, I don't know, but Canaan is the one who's cursed, because he got married to his sister. That wasn't supposed to be what was supposed to happen, apparently. Apparently they're supposed to go off and marry either the sons of Shem or the sons of Japheth. Kind of hard to do since your population is low, but not the case if it's literal history. And so, yeah, this is just brother and sister stuff. Incest. But that's what he's talking about here, is preserving the bloodline, the Holy Grail. And so he explains Noah and that tent incident as a result. Okay? And so then chapter 2 is taken from the Genesis account. Now the Lord God caused a famine to wax sore, and that's taken from the Genesis account. 3, this is facsimile number 2 being translated. Facsimile number 1 is Abraham chapter 1 translated. And so facsimile number 2 is chapter 3 being translated, and it carries on because Joseph now takes this opportunity to help further add another line upon line, precept upon precept, to help Mormons learn about the correct Genesis translation that he would go on and talk about in his King Follett sermon. And so Urim and Thummim, he takes the opportunity to let you know that this is for getting the star dates of the prophecies, days, and times. And so you're supposed to catch on, oh, the Great and Abominable Church is facsimile number 2, the annular eclipse that goes over the state of Utah. Oh. Joseph knew. He was on to Brigham Young before Brigham Young knew. And so he uses Kolob. So don't get caught up on trying to prove it literal history, that there's a Kolob out there and we got to figure it out and find it. No, he's teaching you. Understand actual science astronomy. We have a galaxy. The center of the galaxy is a main sun. And whether it's a dead sun that has died and is now a dark crystal, it's unclear. Nobody's ever gone to the center of the galaxy to find out. There's a cluster of major massive suns surrounding the center. And so then there's the arms of the Milky Way galaxy that have the solar systems throughout it. And we're on one of those near the end of one of the arms of the galaxy. So it's a branch. So yes, the science of agronomy can be applied to space. It's amazing. And so yeah, he then does a premortal council, which the Egyptians had, to talk about earth life, and Mormons choosing Lucifer over their Christ to lose their second estate. And then goes into retranslating Genesis for Mormons, saying that Elohim is supposed to be translated plural, which ruins the Bible. Yeah, because the Jews ruined the Bible first by making Elohim a plural majesty, singular when it's supposed to be plural. And so yeah, Yah is actually the God of Genesis chapter 1, and then gets the new name Yahweh upon completion of the creation story. And that Genesis 1 comes from the Heliopolis creation glyph, as does chapter 2. Shu breathes into Adam the breath of life. Tefnut is the moisture to form Adam with. And so Adam is Geb, the earth, and Dam is blood. And so the red blood with the A, which is the eye of Horus, human being, the first man, the first king of Egypt. Ready? In the da-da-da-vida, baby, don't you know that you drive me crazy? Alrighty, we're done. At 1 hour and 20 minutes, dear God. So I'm gonna have to pull out that picture and do this thing for you. Good to have you back, Jasmine. Hope you guys are okay.